I don't know that you could ever work with me because it sounds like you're too nice. But when you say, I don't see how it could ever happen, because we would say to them, it didn't happen. Let's start with that. Okay.
Welcome to another edition of Solving Your Driver Problem, where we bring guests who have real tactics and strategies for driver recruiting, compliance, training, and retention. Today we've got John Liberatore. He started Primacy Risk Services way back in the dark ages, 2000, and he's got a noble mission, ladies and gentlemen. It's to keep your money in your pockets and not plaintiff attorneys. John, I salute you. It's God's work. John and actually our company's CEO, Mark Gardner, go way back to the Progressive Insurance days. That's actually how we met here. And, why I've been so impressed with John is he's taken all those years of working the insurance companies, consulting for them. And what I've seen is really simple is our mutual clients, direct quote says, John walks on water. That was a quote that happened at a risk event. Not a bad testimonial, sir. Probably better than what I say, which is I call you the wolf from Pulp Fiction, that when there's a problem, we call John to make it go away. So at Avatar Fleet, we do our best to prevent accidents, but when they do happen, John's your guy. And so John, he sleeps with his shoes on, his bags packed, and him and his team are ready to go at a moment's notice should you get that dreadful 3 a.m. call. So John, thanks for stopping by. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Good to be with you.
Well, so like I said, I love the mission. I don't know if one of our clients told me this joke the other day where he said, hey John, what do you call 100 plaintiff attorneys at the bottom of the ocean?
I don't know.
A good start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that good, but I told him I'd give him a nickel anyways. And he was kind of, it's COVID. It's been a little slow for everyone. So anyways, he, we can't make them all sit at the ocean. And I think that's really what you saw was just real mismanagement. And here we are in this aggressive society with terms of plaintiff attorneys. I believe that's kind of the opportunity you saw in primacy, but take us way back to 2000. What was it that you saw, John, that was an underserved need when you decided to get going?
Yeah, really, it comes down to a service. I thought there was then enough of a frustration level in the service on the claim side. I would meet with safety directors, risk managers, CFOs, CEOs, and there was frustration. Sometimes it stemmed from people not taking the time to explain things, and other times it stemmed from claim organizations cutting corners. So I branched out, banking on the fact that there would be enough demand for a higher level of service and that we could efficiently craft that and give the motor carrier what they needed and that they would see the results in their numbers. And after 20 years, that's proven to be pretty true.
I would say so, especially from what I've heard. So let's take it back. Let's start diving in, John, from your expertise, because that's what this is about. We want to share, pick the brains of smart people out there and to share with the listener. So when I've had the opportunity to hear you present a couple times, and something you bring a lot is always the utmost importance of speed and urgency after an accident. And I've heard you preach, the best defense is a fast offense. So would you mind just unpacking that a little bit? What you mean by that and some good tips for everyone?
Yeah, and today it's, especially with COVID, it's much, much more important today than it was 20 years ago when we started. When you consider the proliferation of plaintiff attorneys and how they get paid, you just cannot assume that an accident where there's an occupied vehicle, you can't assume that it's a minor case. You just can't anymore. Unless you do the fundamentals and do them quickly and efficiently. In other words, not spending a lot of money, but you really got to dive in and fully understand what happened. And I'll cite one very broad example. When a truck driver, God bless him, is involved in a minor accident, and they report in that the accident minor, just a scratch, maybe they took pictures, And then they say there's no injuries. And I tell people, you know, we want to support our drivers, of course, and we always will, but you just can't take that to the bank, because people drive off or they call an ambulance, and the next thing you know, you get a letter of representation and the people start treating, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then that seemingly minor event a year from now ends up becoming 50,000, 100,000, or a lot more. And that happens with alarming regularity. And that's what we're trying to stamp out with the way we work.
So you mentioned you take the driver's word and you're having a nice day. You know, it's 6 months later, to your point, could be a year later sometimes, couple, whatever it is. And then in the mail comes the dreaded attorney letter. In that situation, what advice? So in that situation, we'll kind of shift from, okay, now we're playing defense. We didn't play the right offense. Okay, now we're not in the position we want to be. What do you recommend when you find yourself in those situations, John?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was just on a mediation call yesterday in a very, very similar case that's about 4 years old, and virtually nothing was done. Virtually nothing was done to investigate the claim and understand fully who we're dealing with and what the accident was about. But the first thing you have to do in a case like that is to understand, what do we have? What do we have that gives us the best clear picture of the accident? That's number one. And then you have to fill in the gaps. What do we need? Because, you know, let's say there's a plaintiff attorney involved and they're claiming, you know, a right rotator cuff injury, and it's actually a rear end accident. You know, what do we need to challenge what they're contending? Because on the surface, I would say to you, and I say this to our customers all the time, you know, the rear end accident where the allegation is a right shoulder injury, those two do not connect. There is no mechanism of injury for a right shoulder when you have a rear end accident. You need trauma to result in a rotator cuff injury. Those kind of things have to be understood quickly so that you know where to start building your defenses, and you build your defenses where you are weak. So it depends on what you have. You might need medical defenses. You might need things like surveillance, medical sweep, engineering study, which we do a lot of at a low cost, and they're scientific. So it depends on what you don't have, and you need to quickly assemble the pieces of the puzzle so that you can, with confidence, start to push back on these allegations that are being made.
So, you know, on that front, one of our mutual clients who's been good to both of us, he always tells me about building the wall against the plaintiff attorney. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, and you said it too, plaintiff attorneys want an easy target. So when they come knocking at your door, you want them to kind of feel it out and go, this is going to be hard. Let me go find some other schmuck to go, you know, take their money.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling right? And so yeah. What this guy has always baked in my head, I always got this visual. He tells me, Scott, I want to build the defense. So from our perspective on the driver qualification file, when someone pokes around, and then the training, he says, look, I want to show them, here's 75 pages of training that I put them through. Here's their DQ file. This is an isolated incident. Do not attack the program. This is not an attack on the program.
That's great.
Isolated event. You do the same type of so that's kind of part one to it. Mm-hmm. But you've done the same thing, say, with recreating the accidents, you know, where I've of videos, you know, things.
Animation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. You show the animation. Again, you do that quickly. And so kind of that example you were giving where you go, okay, let's take a look at the science here. I'm not sure how what you're describing is possible. Would you mind sharing some of those good stories of playing offense that way?
Yeah. And I'll give two examples, but before I do, I don't know that you could ever work with me because it sounds like you're too nice. But when you say, I don't see how it could ever happen, because we would say to them, it didn't happen. Let's start with that. Okay. So I'm in the middle of doing a claim review, and what I'm seeing in this claim review are the claim handlers. They know about an injury. They might post a token reserve, let's say $4,000. And then months and months and months go by, and there is no activity, nothing accept the phone call to the plaintiff attorney's office to ask, is your client done treating? Are they working? Etc. And oh, by the way, when are you going to send me a demand? They are not having an effect on the outcome of that case. They're just going to bank on the fact that it's not going to be that bad. We'll get the medical, we'll total up the medical and start to offer 2, 3, or 4 times the medical, and hope that everything goes away, and hope that the customer is happy about that. So I see that a lot in claim reviews, which we do a lot of. And I'm going to contrast that. We had a case not too long ago where one of our customers, heavy haul operation, although it doesn't matter, big truck, rear-ended a vehicle in Virginia. And it was a nice, we got pictures right away. It was a nice Mercedes, and we popped the back of it. Not real hard at all. And we were actually, in this scenario, able to talk to our driver immediately from the scene. And he put on the phone the fellow that we hit. So here we are. I mean, it's not, you can't get more immediate than that. And this is awesome. So we start to ask a lot of the hard questions in a polite, professional way, because we're representing the motor carrier. And this fellow starts to give us indications as to where he's going with this and what his end game is, including him saying, you know, I don't want to get rich off of this, which told us he probably wants to get rich off of this. Okay.
He's got a Mercedes payment.
Pardon?
He's got a nice Mercedes payment that he was making.
Yeah. So he gets a lawyer who's in Virginia, and as usual, we do our homework. We want to know who we're up against. So we do our homework on this lawyer, and come to find out that he's known as the Hammer. Now you got to know that term hammer is used all across the country, and they buy it, etc. So he's the Hammer in Virginia. Lowell the Hammer Stanley is his name. So we got a letter of representation. So we called him and said, look, this is not bad. You know, here's a couple bucks we're going to offer you. And he said, you're crazy. My client's injured. That's all I need to know. Okay, we tried. We also told him that we were going to send him a force analysis that would detail the movement of the body and prove that his client wasn't injured. You know, did he feel it? Yeah, he felt it. But it's like, you know, plopping down in the sofa, you know, after a long day. It's kind of what it's like. He wasn't buying it. So we went ahead and did our force analysis. We also got surveillance on the guy, which was kind of helpful. So we got our force analysis report that confirms that an injury scientifically could not occur, it could not result from this accident, scientifically. And furthermore, we had an animation that showed this guy's movement of the body. Because he got hit in the rear, his motion is backward. And where do you go when you get hit in the rear? You go into the seat back and the headrest. So it really limits the movement of your neck, cervical region. So we sent him all this information and said, look, you really need to read this, watch this, etc. And then a couple months later, lo and behold, the Hammer sent us a demand. And as soon as we got the demand, I knew that we won, so to speak. I mean, you know, we hit the guy, we were going to pay something, right? And he had, I forgot how much money the damage was, but it just wasn't that bad, okay? So his demand was about $35,000. Now, left unchecked, there's every reason to believe that demand in another 9 months to a year would have been $150,000. And now we're talking about 50, 60, 70,000 or something like that, because he would have had time to build up the medical. And what we did, in effect, we circumvented that by sending him all this information, and it looked like it was extremely expensive, and it's not. And it served to put a lid on the buildup of damages. Psychologically, he knew he was up against it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't going to be a walk in the park. So he sends in a demand for $35,000, and we ended up settling that for $8,100. Customer was very, very happy. And I remember distinctly the last thing the Hammer said on the phone to me was, do you think I can get another $100? And I said, no, goodbye. And it was settled. So, I mean, there's a psychological aspect to all this. If you do nothing, you give the impression that you are not going to be inquisitive and you're just going to sit back. If you're proactive and be seen, you know, a lot of times what we do is when there's a mild collision, could be a lane change, rear end, right hand squeeze. We take a photograph of that vehicle, we get a photograph and send it in an email to the attorney and say, look, pal, this is what we're talking about. We got serious questions about any injury that could result. So those are kind of the tactical things that we employ to get involved in the cases.
We want to thank you for taking time to listen to Solving Your Driver Problem. If you like the ideas you're hearing and want more information, please subscribe to our blog. You'll receive a weekly email newsletter where, just like this podcast, we're sharing the best ideas and tactics in the industry for improving driver recruiting, compliance, training, and retention. Go to avatarfleet.com/blog to subscribe. While you're there, check out how our software and services are helping our clients hire more drivers while cutting their ad spend in half, achieve driver qualification file compliance in half the time, and reducing claims by 30%. That's avatarfleet.com/blog or avatarfleet.com to check out our products and services.
I love it. It's a great story for how you're playing offense, after the fact. If you're the safety director, and what can they do, John, from an active investigate? So again, accident happened. What can they do to make sure they're prepared, whether they're partnering with you or not? What are some of the keys for the safety directors, how they should be prepared and how he or she should prepare their drivers?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you just cannot overemphasize the need for photographs. Okay. I think that is something, and hey, we love drivers, right? More so than ever. And I'm certainly not putting them down, but it's like, when you're having teenagers, you certainly don't say something once and expect them to remember that for the rest of their life. You have to come back and remind them and say, look, this is important. And sometimes you come at them from different angles, maybe with some humor or, stories, but drivers and actually everybody in the organization needs to understand the importance of photographs after an accident. I get pretty frustrated when a driver says, well, the police showed up and I couldn't get pictures. It's not like the police were right there on the street corner. Just get out of the truck, take a picture of the license plate and a picture of the damage. Don't ask for permission, just do it so that you have that, because with photographs, that's your evidence. That's evidence as to how forceful the collision was. That's the very first thing. And then the second thing is get names and addresses and phone numbers so that someone, hey, it's always best that the trucking company do it if they can, reach the people that were involved in the accident. And when I say reach them, politely over the telephone as soon as possible. That doesn't mean the next day. That doesn't mean, the following Monday. It means that day, that hour, start making phone calls. Don't badger them, but, reach out to them because you're concerned. You care. Hey, is everybody okay? And if you're at fault, we want to take care of your car. Even if you're not at fault, just, hey, I understand we had an accident. Just want to tell you who we are. You're not giving anything away, because odds are they're going to twist the facts of that accident and they're going to try to pin it on your driver. Seen it too many times. Happens a lot. So that would be my advice. Quickly get involved, immediately get photographs and save them.
Yeah. So something we've talked about with our insurance partner mutual partnership that we have is, in the scene of in the event of an accident, a driver's a professional driver. They don't have accidents every day because they wouldn't work there if they did. So they're frazzled. It's right. An uncommon event.
Right.
So even if they went through the Avatar Fleet accident training program, if they did that a year ago, even 6 months ago, what are the chances in that moment they're actually going to remember it, right? That's deep memory recall they got to pull out. So good to do the drip campaigns, do the reminders. That's always positive.
Yep.
But kind of recognize that the safety director, he's got 200 drivers, let's say. He's doing that more frequently than that driver. So what done with some recommendations from other insurance partners is the script is driver calls safety. Safety walks him through it because the driver tends to not, again, frazzled. Mm-hmm. And whether it's, hey, Bob, take some photos right now. Okay. We've seen, I don't know if you've seen it, or do you care if it's photos or video? Kind of video can be easier. You can just kind of pan a little bit, or you don't care as long
I'll take anything.
Yeah. Anything.
Yeah. Anything.
And then You don't think the video, or I mean, again, not permission. I like that. Just do it.
Yeah,
That's
just do it. Yeah, because the people who say, hey, don't take a picture or, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. And likely those are the people who are savvy and they know that that is going to be evidence and they know that it's not minor, but they're going to go to their doctor and say, a truck ran me over, so just go out and take pictures or video. Pictures really suffice. And just save it and send it into the safety director and get it to the claims people right away. Pictures are golden. Believe me, they're golden. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
so something that we've done, we built within our A-Suite platform is we built it for driver recruiting, but savvy safety directors have started actually texting the drivers to say, okay, while they're on the phone, reply to this text, take a picture, reply to this text. And then again, just, the driver doesn't have to think and go, hey, I'm not hanging up. I'm going to stay here, take the phone off your ear, go take a picture and reply back.
Yeah.
We've seen that work.
And if I may, it's always good. I like to ask the question, who in the trucking company is charged with taking accident calls? Because if you say to me, well, it's usually Sue, but it might be Betty or it might be Joe, and then I'll say, okay, stop. Whose primary responsibility is it? We've got to understand the importance of that function because you got to have a form to collect information. So you got to be methodical about it. So you get the same information all the time. You're not going to forget and miss things. But the error that I see many times is the person taking the accident report accepts only what the driver wants to give them. And you said it, they're frazzled. They're frazzled at the scene. I would be, you're not going to have your faculties about you. So you got whoever's internal takes the call, have a form, walk the driver through it, and you've got to manage the driver at the scene. Look, go over and get this. Tell me how far you are. Do you see any signs? Look above you. Do you see any possible video at the intersection? That's golden. More and more that stuff is available. So you got to manage the driver as though you have your hands on his shoulders and you're telling them where to go, what to do, what information to gather, instead of just taking what they give you, because they're not going to give you much, right? They just aren't. So you got to manage that driver right there at the scene. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and for our safety director, here's a pro tip. Safety directors every once in a while do want to go on vacation without having their phone ring.
Yeah.
So what we've done with those savvy folks is, and they pushed it because they're like, Scott, I'd like to just take a day off, is they made that a form, but they did so within the software so that, hey, it's Ron this time, but then it's Larry this when Ron's on vacation, and it's, on Tuesday evenings, night dispatch, it's Betty. Whatever it is, you've got that set protocol. The driver knows, and then that form is a template. So you're getting, the safety director on vacation can sleep at night, knowing that all that data is going to be collected, even if they're not the one on the other end of the phone.
Right. Yep. Totally agree with you. Totally. Yep.
So
these are minor tactics, but they're very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of hit this question, John, from a couple different angles. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of good tips on keeping accident costs down?
Yeah, I'll say make one broad statement. Believe nothing from a plaintiff attorney. Absolutely nothing. And what do I mean by that? When the adjuster calls and said, hey, my client has this and that, just don't buy it. Get evidence for yourself. Get surveillance. Do a background check. Do a social media check right away, etc. But when the attorney sends in, their demand, which is really funny because they just pick a number out of the air. There's no basis for it. What's contained in those records, some people think, well, I got all that I need because I got it from the attorney. Wrong. They have every incentive to filter the medical they don't want you to see, right? So you've got to take time and effort to go out and get the medical on your own. There's ways to do that. But accept, just as a blanket statement, accept nothing from a plaintiff attorney that comes from them directly. That'd be my caution for everybody. Okay, they are not on your side. I don't care what they say. We all know that, but they can be very cunning, very, very cunning. Yeah.
So it's a good segue. Let's kind of let's go back to the hammer. I've heard you present on some negotiation tactics when you're dealing with the various hammers out there. Anchoring was something you've talked about in the past. I think is a key one. We're talking numbers. There's a half a dozen other things that I've heard you present on. So whether it's anchoring or something else, John, what are some of the negotiation approaches you take with plaintiff attorneys?
Well, one that comes to mind is something that I don't see done very often. A few motor carriers do this, but when you have a case that has some significance, whether you owe it or whether you don't, plaintiff counsel is involved. I think it's very, very important to invest time, effort, and money to go and visit with plaintiff counsel. So let me tell you what's going to happen. They'll say, well, why do you want to come and visit me? Well, I say, number one, it's a people business, and they agree with that right away. I want you to get to know me because I'm the guy that you're going to deal with for the next 2 years or a year, and I want to get to know you. And that's really a true statement because you really do need to know who you're dealing with. And there's nothing like I know Scott Ray, okay? But if I went into your home, I'd know a whole lot more about you, right? I'd be looking around, I'd be checking under the table. So you kind of do that with plaintiff counsel. You go into their office and you get a sense of what they're all about, the kind of cases they try. And you're not playing stupid. You're just being sincere. Say, look, I want to get to know you. Eventually we're going to resolve this case one way or another. Why don't we, act like adults? And you just come away with a lot of information. And if it's a case that you don't have, that you have liability and there's some skeletons in your closet, I'd consider bringing those with you. Let's say it's a bad police report. Here you go. Kind of take the wind out of their sails. So many of them are pompous. Or if it's information that's to your benefit, share some of that. Say, look, I want you to know what we got. This is not looking good for you on this one. Okay, so you might want to reconsider expending a whole lot of time, effort, and money. And what that does many times is that saves you on the expense side a year from now. Because when they file the lawsuit, now you have defense counsel, and here goes that expense spigot that's really hard to turn off, as I like to say. So that's one negotiation tactic before you even start negotiating is get to know plaintiff counsel.
And when it comes to numbers, do you like to make them throw out the first number first?
No. This is the anchoring concept. There's a lot that's been written about anchoring. I don't see much of it in the insurance claims and litigation world, but it's very, very true. It happens in everyday life when you're going out to buy things, like a car, especially. You see a number on the windshield. To a degree, you are anchored that car is worth $30,000, and if you get it for $29,000, yeah, you might feel pretty good about that. When in fact, somebody else comes along, they don't know what the price is, they negotiate it for $25,000. What happens in the industry, I'm not sure why, and I know I used to do this, but adjusters being busy people, they'll call an attorney and say, hey, send us a demand, which is like this. I like to draw analogies. It's like me saying to you, Scott, I want you to pick out a car. Just go pick out a car. I don't think you're going to go pick out a Chevy or a Dodge or, no offense to people that drive Chevys or Dodges. But if you said, Liberatore said I can pick any kind of car, I've had my eye on that Maserati or Lamborghini or what, and that's kind of what it's akin to. Hey, it's in effect saying to them, send me a stupid number, would you please? Mm-hmm. Send me a number that makes no sense, but then I'm going to start thinking when it comes in, oh, maybe I undervalued this case. This attorney thinks it's worth $500,000. And that's the whole anchoring concept. And you've got to fight through that. I don't like anybody asking for a demand. Just get the medical, evaluate the case. Their number is stupid. It has no bearing on the case, their demand. Make an offer. That's what I recommend.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I don't know. I guess make the other guy spit this number first. I don't know where that negotiation tactic came up, but somehow that kind of got in business. So I want to make sure that people heard that, John. I think it's
Thank you. Yeah.
in this world, it's very, very appropriate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you're off the Budweiser hot seat for today, but I like to end it with a softball question.
Okay.
So
You're going to ask me about what kind of shampoo I use or something like that?
No, I bought there's a shampoo crisis over here in our house. No, no toilet paper issue. Shampoo is the problem. So get a little reflective here. This is what we do on Solving Your Driver Problem. Tell us, John, what accomplishment are you most proud of in your career and why?
The accomplishment I'm most proud of. Sometimes I look at what we do and people ask us, who's your competition? Well, everybody has competition. Okay. I mean, I'm not so full of myself to think that, I hung the moon. But what we do, the way we do it, I believe that we have created a new service, a new necessary service. I'm proud of that because many people that I speak with say, I never heard of this before. I mean, I usually get this from my insurance company, et cetera. But so we kind of take that apart and say, no, you can have it at your beck and call virtually when you need it 24/7 for every single accident, whether it's minor or major. And we like to track results. So and it has evolved over time. I can't say that, one day I woke up and said, hey, I have a better idea and I hope to be on Shark Tank. That's not it at all. I just think it's evolved and we've paid attention to what the need is in the industry. And maybe along with that, I'll say that I'm very proud of the fact that I really don't believe anybody is quicker in responding to truck accidents than we are on a nationwide basis 24/7. So.
Very cool. Well, John, it's been a pleasure talking with you as always. Thank you for sharing those wise tales of wisdom. You are the wise old man on the hill, and I've learned a lot from you over the years. And thank you for the opportunity to share that with our listeners here. So, John, all the best to you. I look forward to seeing you soon somewhere. Hopefully, on the basketball court is where I would prefer to see you.
Yeah, but from a distance, especially because I got to get my shot up over those long arms.
Social distancing is going to work well for you, especially, and I think Travis's nose as well is going to appreciate that.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Solving Your Driver Problem. Feel free to pass along to everyone in your organization, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to Solving Your Driver Problem with Scott Ray. Check out avatarfleet.com/resources for more industry-leading materials on how to make the driver problem your competition's problem. That's avatarfleet.com/resources.